Welcome, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to our Breakfast Club session. Welcome to Unplug with Pam Breakfast Club session. If you are just tuning in, let me know where you guys are connecting in from in the chats. I see you guys. Welcome, Tampa Bay. Welcome, Atlanta. Welcome, Philly. Welcome, Jersey. Welcome, New York City. Welcome, Chicago. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Breakfast Club call session of Unplugged with Pam, brought to you by Chosen Global. As always, I am so excited, grateful, honored, and blessed to be here with you guys. Welcome. So, if you joined us last week, we were talking about why are you hiding? You're afraid of visibility. If you did not catch that session, make sure you follow us on YouTube. Make sure you guys are keeping up with the Unplugged with Pam podcast all over social media platforms, all over streaming platforms. And today, I want to talk to you guys about staying in your lane. And some of you guys know that I ran an 8K on Sunday. So yes, absolutely. This prompt that because first of all, I thought I signed up for the 5K. Okay. Turns out it was the 8K. And that right there is life. And if you're taking notes, because note takers are history makers, that right there is life, because you think you signed up for something manageable, doable, all of these things, yet God hands you something much larger and longer. And it was actually raining, y'all. I did not feel prepared at all for this race, if I'm being very transparent with you guys, because I wasn't even prepared for the 5K, or so I thought. Right, life. I had been on vacation. I have been gaining extra weight. I have not been at the gym like I normally am. And what I realized was that my heart was just really heavy. My dad has also been in the hospital today. He's having a surgery. Thank you for everybody that has been praying for him. But, as honestly, for me, it was more so of, it didn't matter. I just knew I had to run. Not just run to run away for the moment, but to run towards something. Anybody ever feel what that is? You running towards something. Sometimes you feel like you have to run away from something, but for me, it was a combination of both. And I was really I needed to run towards not only my freedom, I needed to run towards joy. I needed to run towards light. I needed to run towards prosperity. I needed to run towards healing. I needed to run towards my divine destiny. And let me tell y'all, let's talk a little bit about mile one. Because if I'm being honest with y'all, like I always am, halfway through mile one, I was already out of breath. And I paced myself because, I had a conversation with my girl, Kelly. That's my chatty name, right? By the way, my chat GBT's name. And I was talking to her and I was like, all right, cool. My trainer also was just like, drink a lot of water, stretch, all of these things. And I did all of the things. I didn't really get that much sleep because I had to prepare breakfast for our church dream team, which is like our volunteers at church. Thank God, my brother's like helping me stretch all types. I'm like soaking in Epsom salt. Like I did everything that I possibly could have to prepare as much as I could. But my nerves were going absolutely bananas. Like, and if you've ever done something of this magnitude or competed in any way, shape, or form, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I braced myself by walking briskly for like the first mile. And I just couldn't, because halfway through mile one, I started picking up the pace and I was like running, and I started running and I was already out of breath. It started to drizzle, y'all. And I had like a little hat on, and for whatever reason, when I showed up to the 5K the day before, because that's the one that I thought I was running, I put long pants on. But the next day, I decided to wear shorts. Big mistake. So I'm running, and all of a sudden the Florida humidity hits, and it's super sticky. It's hot. And you know, if you've ever been to Florida, or my Floridians know that when that Florida humidity hits, it hits a little different. It starts getting sticky hot. That sticky hot, the kind that clings to you, the kind that you don't want to deal with. And we're on Bayshore Boulevard. So again, if you're from Tampa or you visited Tampa, you already know this is one of the most beautiful tapestries in the city, running right along the bay. And then it starts raining harder and harder and harder. And you could feel it shift. Not only myself, but you could feel it shift among the racers. People started getting anxious. They were annoyed. They were agitated. They were aggravated. Everything you could think of. Okay. The music was blasting. You have the bystanders cheering people on, from the fire department to people's families to just pirates, because you know it wouldn't be Gasparilla if there aren't any pirates. It was complete chaos. And then the next 2.5 miles. Well, the hardest part was not just physically, but if I'm being real with you guys, the hardest part was mentally, because I was trying to navigate through the crowd. And when I hit that half mile mark, that's when I realized that most people, we don't quit because we can't handle the distance. We quit because we cannot handle the noise. Let me tell you why noise is such a big deal. There is such a thing as overstimulation. Overstimulation exhausts our nervous system before the distance ever does. When I was in that first 2.5 miles, the music was blasting, the bullhorns, the pirates yelling, the rain was starting, people were starting bumping into each other, the humidity was sticking to your skin. My body wasn't running, honestly speaking. It was just processing everything that we were going through. And when I realized that, I was just like, I was starting to be overstimulated. I realized that here's why many people, and a lot of us, we don't realize that when your brain can only process so much input at once. This is why when you're overstimulated, and if you've ever felt overstimulated, comment in the thread. I want to see who I'm talking to. Your cortisol level starts to spike. Your breathing shortens. You feel all of a sudden out of breath. You feel like your heart is about to come out of your chest. Your muscles start to tighten. You're thinking narrows. Your emotions amplify. You feel all types of anxiety, irritated, reactive. You realize it's not because you're weak, but it's because your nervous system is overloaded. And when we're overloaded, we do not make strategic decisions. We make survival decisions. And this is why sometimes people quit too early. This is why sometimes we snap emotionally, we pivot impulsively, we compare excessively, and abandon the long-term plans. It's not the distance, it's the overstimulation. Now, let's talk about life for a little bit. When we think about your life, think about it for a second. Whether you are in corporate America or you own a business, you get emails, you get tons of notifications, you got social media, you got competitors, you got family needs, you got financial pressures, you got new seasons and news cycles and opinions and expectations. And that's mental rain. That's emotional humidity. So you're not tired because you're incapable. No. We get tired because we're overstimulated. And when we're overstimulated, it makes us question things that you were clear about when it was quiet. And that's dangerous because destiny always requires clarity. So when I got to that halfway mark of the race, and it was like halfway, right? I was like, yes, sir. Got a little quick video in. And then I pivoted and I saw the sidewalk. And when I stepped onto the empty sidewalk, nothing physically changed because, in fact, now I'm soaked. The rain didn't stop. The distance didn't shorten, but the input decreased. Because now there was no one bumping into me. Now there was no one pacing next to me, pacing behind me. I didn't feel people breathing on me. I didn't see a lot of the chaos because no one was reacting around me. And when the external noise decreased, my internal clarity immediately shifted. I immediately not only found rhythm, I found my breath. And that's when I found momentum. I started getting a nice little stride. I know some of you are like, wait, could you run in the sidewalk? I don't know. However, I'm always the girl that is going to beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission, right? This just works for me. So here's what I realized though. I didn't need less responsibility. We didn't need less noise. I didn't need a shorter race. I needed fewer distractions, just like you. You don't need to quit the 8K. What we needed to quit was regulating the chaos, because overstimulation makes you abandon your lane. And once you abandon your lane, you abandon your rhythm. And once you lose rhythm, you lose momentum. See, whether you're the person that loves to go down the rabbit hole like me when you start studying types of things, and you know that research shows that task switching reduces performance and increases mental fatigue. I remember a mentor once told me, you can multitask, but you can't multifocus. I'm just like, yeah, right. You have no idea who I am. Like that doesn't work for me. Absolutely not. But it's true, because every time that you shift focus, your brain burns extra glucose. So when you're scrolling, doom scrolling at that, when you start getting into the comparison game, joy is automatically being stolen. When you start reacting, peace is automatically being stolen. When you start over analyzing, you're now being impatient. You start also jumping strategies. So what happens is that we start draining our cognitive stamina, and the stamina is required to finish long races, not just in a marathon, but in life. And I'll tell y'all, when I hit that halfway mark, and y'all know, if y'all ever played, I know I'm telling my age, but if y'all ever played like Mario Kart, and he like slips in and gets that extra battery boost, that's how I felt like, because the rain started coming down harder. My clothes were getting heavier. I was getting harder. I could barely see. That's how bad the rain was. But then when I saw that sidewalk, and I saw that sidewalk empty, it was desolated. It was clear. I didn't know, again, if it was allowed, but I stepped into the road less traveled. And when you step into the road less traveled, similarly to when I stepped onto that sidewalk, everything changes. Everything changes because you're still in your lane. And you can look to the left and you could see the crowd that was still there. You could see the rain that was still falling. The humidity, it didn't disappear, but the noise immediately cleared. Why? Because now it's not so much of what's going on externally, but it was what I was controlling. Now I was in control of what's going on internally. And I focused on nobody else but Pam's breathing. One inhale, one exhale. I did my box breathing while I'm running. Yes, I did. Okay. I'm one step at a time. And I'm like praying. I'm talking to God. I'm doing all of the things. But now I got into a groove and I was gone. It was out. The road less traveled. Here's why this also hit me, because I know that the road less traveled is always better. Not because it's easier, but because it's quieter. When you're in your own lane, and I mean your own lane, you're not reacting, you're not comparing, you're not adjusting emotionally, you're not fighting for space, you're flowing. And that flow builds momentum. Que el flow, mi amor. Okay. Okay. All right. But here's the reality. Here's why the momentum got stronger. Because even though the rain got heavier, even though my clothes got heavier, even though the rain was hitting on my bare legs and all over me, because that rain was hurting, I could barely see, all of these things. But now I had momentum. And once you find rhythm in your own lane, external chaos doesn't control you the same way. Eventually, I had to rejoin the crowd, but I rejoined different. Because once you clear the noise externally and you clear it more than anything internally, You can move through whatever noise. You can navigate through it over and over and over again, because now I could bob and weave in between them. Now I was moving and grooving. Now I wasn't worried about who's going to run next to me or run me over. No, I just stood steady, and I finished in a record time in my ad for my first 8K. I thought it was like an hour and 15 minutes. It was an hour and 5 minutes. However, the 8K for the race that I didn't even know I signed up for. So you thought you signed up for the 5K, but life said, here's an 8K. You thought it would be light, but it's heavy. You thought it would be clear, but it's raining. You thought your heart would be settled, but life is happening and it's heavier. And still you run. Not because you're running away towards anything, but you're running toward your purpose. You're running towards your dreams, your goals, the ideal dream life that you have. And the road less traveled isn't popular. It isn't loud. It isn't crowded, but it's powerful. And it builds something inside of us that chaos could never. The road less traveled is always better. Why? Because it teaches you. It teaches you how to breathe. It teaches you how to focus. It teaches you how to trust. It teaches you how to move without reacting, how to finish what you didn't even plan for. So, my dear friends, stay in your lane. Choose the quieter path. Find your rhythm and run your own race. Make sure you finish. Blessings on blessings. See you guys later. Thank you guys for joining in. Make sure you tuned in to and you're subscribed to Unplugged with Pam, brought to you by Chosen Global. Blessings on blessings. Let's get it.